Hey guys, welcome to Real Talk Cinema, the place where stories come alive. Here, we dive deep into the heart of movies, breaking down powerful stories, thrilling twists, and unforgettable characters with rich emotional storytelling. Whether it's the latest Netflix thrillers, Hollywood blockbusters, or hidden cinematic gems, we don't just explain the movie, we make you feel it. From detailed scene by scene breakdowns to behind the scenes facts, fan theories, and emotional journeys, Real Talk Cinema is where real stories get the spotlight they deserve. So hit that subscribe button and let's explore the world of cinema, one story at a time. Today's movie is Straw 2025, a powerful Netflix thriller directed by Tyler Perry that takes us into the raw emotional collapse of a mother pushed to the very edge by life's relentless cruelty. Jania Wilkinson's mornings are not like the mornings most people know. For her, each sunrise is not a new beginning, it's a continuation of the endless struggle she cannot escape. As the first light creeps through the thin, tattered curtains of her suffocating Atlanta apartment, Jania is already awake. Sleep rarely visits her. Her body is exhausted, but her mind is trapped in an unending cycle of survival. The room is small, cluttered, and almost collapsing under the weight of second-hand furniture, stacked bills, and the suffocating pressure of unpaid rent. But within this small, overburdened space, her entire universe revolves around her daughter, Arya. Arya's health is fragile, her body weakened by an unnamed illness that gnaws at her energy, her freedom, her childhood. And so, Jania's mornings begin with delicate, almost sacred rituals. She carefully shaves Arya's hair, not because she wants to, but because life has forced her to. The hair falls in soft tufts to the floor, each strand a painful reminder of everything that has been taken from them. It's not about style, it's about comfort, about minimizing discomfort, about controlling the one small thing Jania still can. With each careful stroke of the razor, she whispers to her daughter, gently urging her to sit still, not to move, to trust her. And Arya trusts her completely, because in her world, her mother is the only safe place she knows. But even in this moment of closeness, the shadow of life's brutal realities hovers over them. In the corner of the room, a science project, a makeshift contraption of bundled straws and tubes, sits delicately balanced on a chair. It's the kind of small, simple thing that might be meaningless to others, but for Jania, it's a chance. A fragile, desperate hope tied to a school assignment, tied to proving that maybe, just maybe, she and her daughter can still move forward. Yet beneath this fragile morning lies a ticking clock. The weight of eviction looms. Bills remain unopened on the kitchen counter, each envelope like a silent scream demanding money she does not have. And outside, the landlord's angry knocks are becoming more frequent. The world is not waiting for her. It is bearing down, ready to strip her of what little she has left. And so, as Jania helps Arya put on her worn school uniform, zips her jacket, and gently kisses her head, there's a haunting truth settling inside her. This is not just a bad day, it's the slow unraveling of a life already stretched to its breaking point. Tyler Perry directs these opening moments with a brutal intimacy. He forces the camera to linger, to let us feel the heaviness in Jania's breathing, to hear the silence that fills their apartment, the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. And as the door closes behind them, and Jania grips Arya's hand a little tighter than usual, we feel it deep inside. This day, this ordinary, exhausted day, is the day that will shatter everything. As Jania walks her daughter Arya to school, the weight of the morning lingers on her shoulders. But her eyes are locked on one thing, Arya's science project. It's not just a simple school assignment made of straws and plastic tubes, it's a symbol. It represents the last thread of normalcy in a life where everything else is falling apart. For Arya, this project is more than just homework. It's her chance to participate, to stand beside the other kids, to not feel different for just one day. And for Jania, it's more than that. It's her chance to show that despite the crushing poverty, despite the late notices, despite the hospitals and the missed paychecks, she is still a mother who shows up. The project, delicate and awkwardly glued together, feels almost like their life, barely holding, moments away from collapse. Jania had spent the night before scavenging for straws and tape, stealing moments from her cleaning job just to get the materials. She could have been sleeping, but instead, she was building, piece by fragile piece. Every time her eyelids grew heavy, she forced them open, whispering to herself that this would matter to Arya, that this would be the moment her daughter would finally smile again. When they arrive at school, the other kids rush past them, carrying slick, professionally crafted projects that scream privilege. Bright colors, perfect structures, likely built by parents with time, money, and resources Jania can only dream of. Jania looks at the other projects, then at Arya's simple straw tower, and for a fleeting second, shame flickers in her chest. But then Arya looks up at her with the purest gratitude, her tired eyes lighting up as if she is holding something priceless. And in that tiny, fragile moment, Jania feels something rare, a sliver of pride, a sliver of victory in a life otherwise filled with losses. The school environment, however, is merciless. Teachers who see children as paperwork, administrators who measure success in test scores, classmates who laugh at the cheap project made of straws. Jania is invisible to them, just another struggling mother they don't bother to know. But what they cannot see is the depth of her sacrifice, the hours she traded, the meals she skipped, the pain she buried just to bring this one tiny moment of joy to her daughter. The project itself becomes a symbol throughout the movie. It represents resilience, the delicate balance between survival and collapse. And when Arya proudly places it on her teacher's desk, it stands tall, not because it's the biggest, not because it's the best, but because it is the only one that carries the weight of a mother's entire fight. Tyler Perry lingers on this scene, allowing us to see how something as small as a bundle of straws can carry the emotional load of a life on the edge. It's more than a school project. It's the last piece of hope Jania can afford to give. And we, as the audience, feel the pulse of that hope in our chest, knowing that in this world, sometimes all we're holding on to is a single, trembling straw. The quiet moments after Arya is dropped off at school are when the true weight of the world settles on Jania's shoulders. As she steps into the cold hallway of her apartment building, her phone vibrates in her pocket, a sound that now feels more like a threat than a convenience. She answers with a voice that's already tired, already defensive, already bracing for bad news. On the other end is a voice she knows too well, the cold, emotionless representative from the healthcare office. For months, Jania has been holding back a financial tsunami, scrambling between government programs, charity clinics, and pleading phone calls. Every time she has found a temporary life raft, the system has kicked her back into the ocean. But this time, the call delivers the final blow. Her insurance has been denied. The state has officially rejected her application for further medical coverage for Arya. There's no appeal, there's no backup. Just a quiet, detached voice on the phone telling her, "Unfortunately, you no longer qualify." The words feel like a death sentence, but said so calmly, as if they carry no consequence. In that moment, the apartment walls seem to close in, the air thickening around her breathing suddenly shallow. The weight of it is not just the loss of insurance, it's the loss of time. Without coverage, Arya's treatments will stop. The medications will disappear. The doctor visits will become luxury items they can no longer afford. The life she has been fighting to protect is now slipping through her fingers, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. Jania's voice cracks as she begs, her words tripping over each other, tears brimming in her eyes, pleading with the representative to reconsider. But the response is cold, bureaucratic, rehearsed. "There's nothing we can do." Tyler Perry captures this moment with unbearable silence. There's no background music, no dramatic cut, just the raw, exposed pain of a mother who realizes she is now entirely on her own. The loneliness in that silence screams louder than any soundtrack ever could. And when the call ends, Jania doesn't collapse into sobs. She doesn't scream. She just stands there, phone still pressed to her ear, as if the call might come back, as if she misheard, as if someone, anyone, will tell her this is a mistake, but no one does. The silence stays. The rejection stands. The system has spoken, and it has left her to drown. The brilliance of this scene is how ordinary it feels. This is not a Hollywood tragedy. It's the quiet kind of devastation that happens every day to people society chooses not to see. It's the kind of moment that happens behind closed doors, in small apartments where people cry silently because there's no one there to hear them anyway. For Jania, this is the first brutal confirmation that the system has officially abandoned her, and it sets her on a path where desperation will force her to make choices she never imagined possible. Dot. After the devastating phone call that strips away Arya's insurance, Jania is forced to do what countless struggling parents must. She hunts for more work. Not because she has the time, not because she has the energy, but because there is simply no other choice. Survival is not a decision, it's a demand. And now, her already suffocating life is about to become unbearable. Jania's first job as a janitor at a local grocery store is already grueling. Long hours scrubbing filthy restrooms, mopping sticky floors, dealing with dismissive supervisors who see her not as a person but as a replaceable pair of hands. She clocks out exhausted, aching from head to toe, only to rush home to care for Arya, feeding her, checking her medications, helping her with schoolwork, soothing her through the nights when pain and fear keep the child awake. There is no rest in Jania's life. Only responsibilities stacked on top of responsibilities, each one heavier than the last. But now, with medical bills looming like tidal waves, she takes on a second job as a night cleaner in an office building. These hours are brutal. They carve into what little time she had left to sleep or simply breathe. The office halls are cold, silent, soulless. The fluorescent lights buzz above her head as she scrubs floors long after the last executive has gone home to their warm bed. Tyler Perry frames these scenes with heartbreaking contrast. The luxury of the office spaces, the expensive coffee machines, the untouched glass conference tables, all polished by a woman who can't afford to take her daughter to the doctor. What's most painful is not the physical exhaustion, though that is slowly grinding her body down, it's the emotional fracture. Every hour she spends at this second job is an hour she's away from Arya. The guilt gnaws at her. She races home each morning, praying Arya didn't get sick in the night, praying the babysitter stayed, praying her daughter doesn't feel abandoned. But time is now the enemy. Jania is slipping further and further behind, no matter how hard she works. The bills are still winning, the sickness is still advancing, and her body, this body that has always carried everyone else's burdens, is now beginning to break down too. Her vision blurs during long shifts, her hands tremble from exhaustion, her knees ache from constant pressure. Yet the most crushing detail is this: no one sees her. In both jobs, she is invisible. The grocery store manager doesn't know her name. The office security guards barely nod at her. She exists in the gaps between paychecks, between office hours, between the moments when everyone else is sleeping. Her life is spent cleaning up the spaces where others live, while her own life collapses quietly in the background. Tyler Perry crafts these sequences with painful precision, showing us how working two jobs is not a heroic montage. It's a slow, suffocating death by exhaustion. This is not a story about someone who just needs to work harder. This is a story about someone who is already giving everything: her time, her health, her sanity. And still, the world says it is not enough. In these moments, we feel the sharp truth of the film. Sometimes, survival costs you more than you can afford to pay. One morning, after finishing her brutal night shift, Jania drags herself home, barely able to keep her eyes open. Her legs tremble under the weight of hours spent scrubbing, bending, lifting. All she wants is to reach her apartment, to collapse on her couch for even a few minutes before she must pick Arya up from school. But as she steps into a rundown building, she's greeted by a familiar sign taped to the rusted elevator doors. Out of service, use stairs. This isn't the first time. It won't be the last. The elevator in this government-funded building breaks down regularly. and no one ever really fixes it. The property managers promise repairs that never come. The city pretends not to see. And for tenants like Jania, it's just another reminder that in this world, their suffering is simply not a priority. Her apartment is on the 7th floor. 7 flights of cracked, uneven stairs. 7 flights with a bag of groceries in one hand and her cleaning supplies in the other. 7 flights when her legs are already screaming for rest. Jania looks at those stairs, her entire body sagging under invisible weight, and for a moment, it seems impossible. The journey upward is not just physically hard, it's emotionally crushing. Each step is a reminder of how far away comfort is, how distant peace feels. Every flight echoes her isolation, her exhaustion, her growing sense that she is forever climbing but never arriving. Tyler Perry uses this staircase as a recurring symbol throughout the movie. It's not just a broken elevator, it's the broken promises of the system, the vertical prison of poverty where each step costs something you can't get back. He shows us the agonizing pace of Jania's climb, her hand gripping the railing so tightly, her knuckles turn white, her breath ragged and sharp, her shoulders sinking lower with each step. But the most heartbreaking detail comes when Jania pauses on the 3rd-floor landing. Just for a second, her eyes drifting to the small, childish drawing stuck to the wall. A crayon sketch of a girl holding a bunch of straws. Aria's project. It's taped there, weathered and curling at the edges, almost forgotten by the building's other tenants. But for Jania, that drawing is a beacon. It's the silent push that makes her keep climbing, no matter how much it hurts. This climb is not heroic, it is not triumphant, it is simply necessary. There is no elevator. There is no shortcut. There is no one coming to carry her bags or ease her load. She climbs because there is no other option. And when she finally reaches her door, when she fumbles for her keys with trembling hands, when she steps into her apartment, she doesn't collapse into a movie-style sobbing fit. She simply sits down, breathes hard, and stares at the ceiling. Because in her life, even exhaustion must be timed. There is no luxury of falling apart. Tyler Perry masterfully shows us how the small, overlooked details of poverty, the broken elevators, the endless stairs, are not side stories. They are the story. The quiet, constant battles that wear people down long before anything dramatic happens. This scene isn't loud, it isn't fast, but it stays with you. Because in the silence of those stairs, we see the real cost of a life where even getting home is a battle. After another endless shift and another battle with the apartment's broken staircase, Jania's day is far from over. She heads out to pick up Aria from school, still wearing the faint smell of cleaning chemicals, her muscles stiff with exhaustion. On the walk home, Aria chatters cheerfully about her school day, about friends, about her art project, about how her teacher smiled at her drawing. Jania forces herself to smile, to listen carefully, to laugh when Aria expects her to. But there's a quiet, nagging sense inside her that something is wrong. Later that evening, as Aria works on her homework, Jania notices the girl wince slightly when she reaches for her colored pencils. It's a tiny, almost invisible flinch, a quick catch of breath, a tensing of the shoulders. Jania's heart immediately seizes. She knows that pain, she knows what that means, but when she gently asks, "Does it hurt, baby?" Aria's response is a small, brave lie. "No, Mama, I'm okay." This moment is not loud, but it's devastating. Aria, just a little girl, has already learned that the truth, her pain, is a burden her mother cannot afford to carry. She has already seen her mother's sleepless nights, the back-to-back jobs, the tearful phone calls, the quiet moments where Jania stares at unpaid bills for hours. Aria has pieced it all together, and now this child is protecting her mother. She hides her pain because she understands, on a heartbreaking level, that there's no medicine coming. There's no doctor visit scheduled. There's no easy solution waiting. She knows that if she says the pain is bad, it will only make things worse for Mama. So, she pretends. She pretends she's fine. She pretends the ache is nothing. She pretends because she loves her mother too much to add one more weight to her shoulders. Tyler Perry captures this with brutal honesty. No dramatic music, no shouting, just a quiet, piercing look between mother and daughter. Jania sees the lie, but she lets it pass. Not because she wants to, but because she has to. What could she even offer? There's no doctor to call. There's no money for new medication. All she can do is hold her daughter tightly that night, wishing love could be enough to heal bone deep pain. This scene cuts deep because it shows us what poverty teaches children. Not just how to survive, but how to hide. Not just how to endure pain, but how to protect the people they love from it. It shows how poverty isn't just about money, it's about what kids like Arya learn to sacrifice. Their right to ask for help, their right to cry, their right to say, I hurt. The film quietly shows us that Arya's growing silence is not natural, it is learned, it is survival. And what makes this moment unforgettable is that even in this crushing reality, Jania still smiles. She still praises Arya's drawing. She still says, You're so strong, baby. Because even if she knows the truth, she also knows that sometimes pretending is the only comfort left. This is Tyler Perry's brilliance. He doesn't have to shout to break your heart. He simply shows you the small lies we tell to keep going. Jania's struggle takes a painful twist when she realizes she can no longer afford the trusted babysitter who has cared for Arya during her exhausting night shifts. The babysitter, an elderly woman named Miss Carroll, had been a quiet blessing, a steady hand, a gentle presence who made sure Arya was safe and comforted when Jania couldn't be there. But now, with medical bills piling and the second job barely covering rent, Jania is forced to make a gut-wrenching decision. She must find cheaper daycare, or risk leaving Arya alone. The search is desperate and rushed. The affordable options are limited and heartbreaking. She visits one rundown daycare tucked in the corner of a crumbling building, its walls stained, its toys old and broken. The staff disinterested, their eyes glued to their phones. There are no warm greetings here, no softness, just a system that accepts children as bodies to supervise, not lives to nurture. Jania knows this is not the place Arya deserves. Her chest tightens as she imagines her daughter in those cold rooms, her laughter stifled, her questions ignored. But she is trapped. The other daycare options are out of reach. Miss Carroll's fee is now impossible. And staying home isn't even a question. Missing work would mean no food, no roof, no treatment. The film lingers on Jania's hesitation, showing her standing frozen outside the daycare's door, her hands trembling as she signs the admission papers. Tyler Perry frames this as one of the cruelest decisions poverty forces upon parents, not between good and bad, but between bad and worse. It's not about choosing the best, it's about choosing what's barely acceptable and praying it won't break what's left of your child's spirit. When she drops Arya off for the first time, the little girl clutches her mother's hand a little too tightly, her usual sparkle dimmed by the unfamiliar, uncomfortable atmosphere. Jania kneels down and forces a smile, whispering, It's just for a little while, baby. But they both know this isn't temporary. This is survival's new reality. The daycare isn't abusive, but it's indifferent. And sometimes, indifference cuts deeper than cruelty. Arya starts coming home quieter, drawing less, retreating into herself. And Jania carries that guilt like an anchor, knowing she placed her daughter there, knowing she chose it, because there was no other choice. The brilliance of this point is in its raw simplicity. The world often praises working mothers as heroes, but it rarely asks what they've been forced to give up along the way. Safety, comfort, the small joys that build a child's confidence, all bartered for survival. This is the silent tragedy Tyler Perry brings forward. Sometimes, when you're poor, doing the right thing still feels like the wrong thing. And no one, not the system, not society, will come to tell you otherwise. One evening, while helping Arya brush her teeth, Jania notices her daughter flinch sharply, a tiny gasp escaping her lips as the toothbrush grazes the back of her mouth. Concerned, Jania gently asks to see, and that's when she finds it. A back tooth, cracked and discolored, a cavity that has eaten its way deep, untreated for months. The guilt crashes over Jania like a wave. She had known Arya was complaining about a little ache weeks ago, but she told herself it would pass. She didn't ignore it out of neglect. She simply couldn't afford to act on it. Dental care is a luxury in Jania's world. The free clinics in her neighborhood have waiting lists that stretch for months, and the few nearby dentists demand upfront cash Jania doesn't have. She begins to make desperate phone calls, pleading with city run programs, chasing the slim chance of a charity dentist. Every door slams shut. Every voice on the other end of the line says the same thing: "We're sorry, but we can't help you right now." The weight of this moment is crushing. Jania realizes that, once again, her daughter's well being is being measured against a system designed to exclude people like them. The pain in Arya's mouth is small in size but monstrous in meaning. It's another physical reminder that poverty doesn't just steal opportunities, it lets pain rot inside you, quietly and slowly. Desperate, Jania resorts to home remedies, mixing saltwater rinses and crushed clove paste in trembling hands, praying for temporary relief. She reads online advice, digs through community message boards, hunting for answers she can afford. Each night, she holds Arya's head against her chest, rocking her as the girl cries through the worst of it, whispering false promises that tomorrow will be better. Tyler Perry focuses here on the brutality of invisible suffering. The world outside may never see this battle, may never witness this mother pressing a cold rag to her child's jaw while silently weeping. The camera lingers on the tiny details: the clove paste staining Jania's fingers, the unanswered calls on her cracked phone, the way Arya starts speaking with her mouth half closed to avoid the stabbing pain. And the most devastating truth? The tooth will not fix itself. The pain will not wait for money to appear. It will grow, it will spread, it will become unbearable, and the world will look away. This is what Tyler Perry's Straw does so powerfully. It shows us that suffering doesn't always arrive in grand cinematic moments. Sometimes it arrives in the slow decay of a tooth, the quiet sobs in the night, the sharp pinch of being forced to wait for help that will never come. Jania carries this guilt like another weight in her overburdened heart. She isn't just fighting to survive anymore. She is fighting the slow, steady erosion of her daughter's health, her childhood, her joy. And in the cruelest twist, she knows that in the eyes of the world, she will be blamed for it. Jania's life takes another painful turn when she is called to Arya's school for a parent-teacher meeting. The tone of the letter is polite, but Jania feels the weight behind it. A summoning, a silent accusation wrapped in school formalities. She arrives, exhausted and underdressed, her work uniform still clinging to her, smelling faintly of bleach. The other parents in the hallway wear crisp blouses and relaxed smiles. She feels immediately out of place, a ghost wandering through someone else's world. When the teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, begins to speak, the words are carefully chosen, softened by a rehearsed kindness. Arya has been withdrawn lately. She's stopped participating in class discussions. Her artwork has darkened. Gone are the bright colors she once loved. Mrs. Reynolds gently suggests that perhaps things at home are affecting her. And in that moment, Jania feels the sharp sting of polite judgment. What cuts deepest is not what Mrs. Reynolds says, it's what she does not say. There is no real curiosity about what Jania is going through, no real effort to understand. Instead, the teacher's kind tone masks the quiet belief that Jania is failing her child. Jania tries to explain, briefly, carefully. She mentions working 2 jobs. She says they're going through a hard time. But her words feel small in the sterile fluorescent room. She can see in Mrs. Reynolds' eyes that her story is being filed into the same drawer as every other struggling parent the system half-heartedly deals with. The school's solutions are as cold as the meeting room. Perhaps Arya could be referred to a counselor, but appointments are booked months ahead. Maybe she could join after-school programs, but the fees are significant. The suggestions keep coming, none of them realistic for someone living paycheck to paycheck. What the school fails to understand is that poverty is not just a financial condition, it is a time thief. Jania doesn't have the hours to wait in endless lines, the flexibility to chase resources that require 10 forms and 3 office visits. She is already drowning in a life that demands too much and offers too little. What's so powerful about this moment is Tyler Perry's subtle exposure of systemic apathy. The school system is designed to notice the cracks, but it is not designed to catch the falling. It identifies the problem, labels it, and then quietly steps aside, leaving parents like Jania to fend for themselves under the polite illusion of support. As Jania leaves the meeting, her chest is tight, not just with worry for Arya, but with the suffocating shame that the school now sees her as the neglectful mother, the one whose child is slipping through the cracks. She knows how the narrative will travel through the staff rooms, how the next note sent home will be written with the same soft condescension. But what no one asks is what she's sacrificing just to show up. They don't see the double shifts, the skipped meals, the nights spent counting coins. They don't see the war she's fighting in silence. Tyler Perry masterfully paints this confrontation not as an explosion, but as a quiet defeat. Sometimes the deepest wounds are inflicted not by insults, but by a smile that doesn't truly care. One chilly morning, as winter begins to settle into the city, Jania realizes Arya's jacket is missing. Not just any jacket, the only one warm enough to guard her against the biting wind. In their rush to keep up with their exhausting routine, Arya had left it behind at daycare a few days ago, and when Jania returns to retrieve it, it's gone. No one knows where it is. No one cares enough to look. A jacket might seem like a small loss to some. For Jania, it feels catastrophic. She doesn't have the spare money to replace it. Even the thrift stores she usually relies on don't have anything Arya's size this week. The good jackets, the ones without broken zippers or torn sleeves, are already claimed by families who, like Jania, are constantly one accident away from disaster. But what stings the most is not the cold. It's the look in Arya's eyes when she realizes she has to go to school without it. Other kids in bright puffy coats shuffle past her, snug and laughing, while Arya walks with her shoulders hunched, her little arms wrapped tightly around herself to fight off the freezing air. Pride flickers in her eyes, but it's thin, fragile. The cold is not just physical, it seeps into her spirit. Jania does her best to compensate. She layers Arya in sweaters, doubles up on shirts, wraps a scarf around her neck twice. But it's not enough. She knows it. Arya knows it. The world can see it. One day, a well-meaning teacher at school offers Arya a donated jacket, a charity piece from the school's lost and found collection. Arya hesitates. She wants to say yes, she wants to be warm, but there's a quiet war happening inside her. Accepting the jacket would mean accepting that she is the charity case, that she is different. She shakes her head and tells the teacher she's fine. She lies, not because she wants to be brave, but because she wants to be seen as normal. When Arya tells Jania about it that evening, the mother's heart shatters in silence. She doesn't scold her daughter, she doesn't push, she just holds her tighter that night, as if her own body could be the jacket Arya refused to wear. Tyler Perry lingers in this moment, not with dramatic music or flashy dialogue, but with cold silence. He forces us to sit in the quiet pain of dignity and deprivation colliding. This is where straw hits hardest. It reminds us that poverty is not just about the things you don't have, it's about the things you refuse to take because you're tired of being the one who always needs help. The missing jacket becomes more than a piece of clothing. It becomes a symbol of how poverty strips people of the ability to protect what they love. And when protection costs more than pride, sometimes people will choose pride, even if it means shivering alone. It's late on a Friday evening when Jania stands in the fluorescent lit aisles of a local grocery store, clenching a crumpled shopping list in one hand and a $10 bill in the other. The list is modest: bread, milk, a small box of cereal, maybe a piece of fruit if the price allows. But even this feels like gambling with the little she has left. She calculates and recalculates, her eyes darting between the shelves and the price tags, her mind racing faster than her heartbeat. Every item becomes a decision wrapped in guilt. Should she buy the off-brand cereal Arya doesn't really like just to save 75 cents? Should she skip the milk this time? Maybe they can stretch what's left for another week. Should she forget the apples? Maybe Arya won't notice. The cart remains nearly empty, yet the weight of it is suffocating. Jania approaches the checkout with trembling hands, praying she did the math right. The cashier scans the items, the beep sounding louder, each one like a ticking clock in her ears. The total flashes on the screen, $9.87. She breathes out a shaky sigh of relief. She made it. But then Arya, who's been quietly holding her mother's hand, spots a small chocolate bar near the register. She picks it up with the pure innocence of a child who doesn't understand the war her mother is fighting. Mama, can I have this, please? Just this one? It's 99 cents. Jania's heart sinks. To any passerby, it's nothing, less than $1. But to Jania, it's the bus fare she needs for work tomorrow. It's the difference between walking 5 miles in the dark or getting there safely. She knows what she should say. She should say no, but the words choke in her throat. She looks down at Arya, who is smiling for the first time in days, her little hands clutching that candy as if it's the most precious thing in the world. For a fleeting moment, Jania considers sacrificing her bus fare just to protect that smile. But she can't. Her voice breaks as she says, "Not today, baby. Maybe next time." Arya's face falls. She quietly puts the chocolate back without protest, but Jania sees the sadness settle in her eyes. As they leave the store, Jania's tears blur her vision, falling silently as she grips the plastic bag filled with essentials but devoid of joy. It's a brutal reminder that poverty isn't just about hunger. It's about choosing which joys you must deny your child over and over again. Tyler Perry doesn't need grand tragedy to break us in this scene. He shows us the sharpness of small moments, the candy that wasn't bought, the smile that didn't last, the love that was always there but couldn't afford to show itself. The grocery store becomes more than just a place to buy food. It becomes a battlefield where dignity, necessity, and heartbreak collide in the most ordinary setting. And the most painful part? No one in the world notices this quiet war, but for Jania, it's the war she's losing every single day. After the grocery store heartbreak, Jania and Arya begin the long walk home. The plastic bag in Jania's hand feels heavier than it should, not because of its weight, but because of what it represents. A bag full of necessities, but empty of the one thing Arya wanted. The streets are quiet, the city lights flickering over cracked sidewalks, and the distant hum of traffic feels like it belongs to another world, a world they are not a part of. Arya walks a few steps ahead, her little shoulders drooped, dragging her feet across the pavement. The silence between them is thick. It's not the peaceful silence of understanding. It's the painful silence of words unsaid, of disappointment neither of them knows how to express. Jania watches her daughter's small figure, her heart pulling apart with every step. She wishes she could explain the invisible battles she's fighting, the wages that barely cover rent, the second job that keeps her away from home, the coins she counts late at night just to make sure they can eat the next day. But how do you tell a child that love is sometimes not enough to beat the system? How do you make her understand that the world has placed a price tag on even the smallest joys? Jania thinks about the chocolate bar, about the look in Arya's eyes, and guilt gnaws at her like a quiet predator. She tries to break the silence, offering small talk about school, about the cartoons Arya likes, but her daughter only nods, barely answering. The walk stretches on, each block feeling like a mile, the cold seeping through their thin layers of clothing, and yet neither of them says they're cold, neither of them complains. That's the most heartbreaking part. They've both learned how to swallow their needs without asking. Tyler Perry lingers on this walk, letting us feel every step, every breath, every unspoken word. He doesn't rush through it. He makes us sit in the discomfort, in the weight of the silence that so many families like Jania's have to carry home from stores, from schools, from the indifferent corners of society. The distance home becomes symbolic. It's not just a walk through streets, it's a walk through the emotional landscape of poverty, of resilience, of quiet suffering. It's a reminder that sometimes the hardest journeys aren't measured by miles, but by the weight of what we carry in our hearts. As they turn the final corner toward their apartment, Jania's resolve hardens. She knows she has to keep going. She knows tomorrow will be another battle. But right now, in this quiet walk, she wishes she could offer her daughter more than just survival. She wishes she could offer her a world where children don't have to trade happiness for necessity. But for tonight, they just walk, together, in silence, under the cold sky dot. That night, after the long walk home, the apartment is eerily quiet. The walls, once filled with laughter and bedtime stories, now seem to echo the weight of the day. Jania tucks Arya into bed, pulling the thin blanket up to her chin, brushing a stray curl from her daughter's forehead. She lingers there, sitting on the edge of the mattress, unsure of what to say, afraid that her silence is already answering all the questions Arya is too young to ask. Arya's small voice finally breaks the silence. Mama, why can't we ever get the things other people have? It's a question that pierces straight through Jania's heart. A question laced with innocence but soaked in painful truth. It's not just about the chocolate bar anymore. It's about the birthday parties they don't throw, the new shoes they can't buy, the class trips Arya always has to miss. It's about every maybe next time that has quietly piled up between them. Jania wants to give her daughter the world, but all she holds in her hands are apologies. She feels trapped between honesty and hope. She could explain the math, the rent, the bills, the bus fares, but what child should have to understand survival budgets? What child should have to carry the knowledge that her mother is constantly choosing between food and light, between school clothes and dinner? So, Jania does what mothers in her position have done for generations. She wraps her reality in the gentlest words she can find. Baby, we don't always have what others have, but we got each other. And sometimes, that's more special than all the toys in the world. Arya nods, but Jania can see in her eyes that the answer doesn't satisfy the ache. Children know. They know when words are dressed up bandages. They know when the smiles are tired. They may not understand poverty's language, but they can feel its weight. Tyler Perry's brilliance shines here. He allows the moment to breathe. There's no dramatic music, no grand life lesson, just a quiet exchange between a mother and daughter sitting on opposite sides of an invisible wall built by hardship. The bedroom becomes a stage for a silent tug of war between Jania's desire to protect Arya's childhood and the brutal truth that poverty doesn't care about age. Love is here, but love, painfully, is not always enough to cover the gaps reality leaves. Jania kisses Arya's forehead, whispering promises she's desperate to keep, even if the world keeps pulling the ground out from under her feet. She turns off the light, standing in the doorway, watching her daughter drift to sleep, wondering if tomorrow will bring more opportunities, or just more reasons to say no. In Straw, Tyler Perry shows us that the most heartbreaking battles often happen in the quietest rooms, under the softest blankets, between the people who love each other the most. A week later, the school announces a field trip, a simple outing to the city zoo. For most kids, it's just another adventure, another memory in the making. For Arya, it becomes a silent heartbreak the moment she brings the permission slip home. The trip costs $12. $12. To some, it's lunch money. To Jania, it's the next 3 days of bus fare. It's the detergent she's been rationing to stretch the last bottle. It's the money she had quietly set aside to finally buy Arya a warmer jacket. $12 is not a small request in their world. It's a brick wall. Jania holds the permission slip in her hands that night, as if it's made of glass. She stares at the due date, calculating every corner of her strained budget, flipping through mental lists of unpaid bills, overdue rent notices, and the rapidly shrinking grocery money. She wants to say yes. Every part of her screams to say yes. But when she stacks the numbers, the answer is painfully clear. There's no space. There's no breathing room. There's no $12. The next morning, Jania tries to soften the blow. She kneels in front of Arya and says with forced gentleness, "Maybe you can go on the next trip, baby." This one came too fast. But Arya's face changes. She doesn't cry. She doesn't beg. Instead, she does something that shatters Jania's heart in the quietest way. She shrugs and says, It's okay, Mama. I didn't really want to go anyway. It's a lie. It's the lie of a child who has already learned how to protect her mother from guilt. It's the lie of a child who has already started shrinking her own dreams to fit the size of their wallet. Tyler Perry masterfully slows down this moment, refusing to let us escape its weight. There's no dramatic argument, no screaming, just the quiet resignation of a child who knows her place in a world that keeps reminding her of what she cannot have. What hurts even more is the next day at school. Arya watches as her classmates chatter excitedly about the upcoming trip, what animals they'll see, what snacks they'll bring. And when the day finally arrives, she is one of the few left behind, sitting in a nearly empty classroom, coloring quietly, while everyone else builds memories she will never get to share. This is where Straw becomes brutally honest. It's not about whether people survive poverty, it's about what they are quietly excluded from along the way. These moments don't make headlines, they don't attract sympathy funds, but they chip away at a child's sense of belonging. Arya's exclusion is not just from the field trip, it's from the simple joy of being part of something. And what lingers the longest is the way she starts telling herself she didn't really care. She learns to lower her expectations, to stop asking, to stop hoping. This is the silent cost of poverty. Tyler Perry refuses to let us ignore Dot late one evening. As Jania finally settles down after putting Arya to bed, her phone buzzes. It's her manager from the second job, a cleaning company that pays by the hour. A co-worker didn't show up. There's an emergency shift. It's last minute. It's overnight. Can she come in? There's no polite way to say no. She needs the hours. She needs the money. There is no safety net waiting to catch her if she refuses. But tonight is different. Tonight, Arya isn't feeling well. She had gone to bed with a slight fever, her cheeks flushed, her small body curling tighter under the thin blanket. Jania stands in the tiny kitchen, staring at her phone as the minutes pass, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. If she says yes, she has to leave her sick child alone in the apartment for the entire night. If she says no, the pay she's counting on will vanish, and worse, her boss might not call her again for extra shifts. This is the brutality of poverty. It does not wait until your life is convenient. It demands sacrifices at the worst possible moments. Jania paces the floor, torn between two impossible choices. Be the mother who stays and risks falling deeper into financial quicksand. Or be the mother who leaves and risks the unthinkable happening while she's gone. She checks on Arya, who is half asleep, breathing softly, her forehead still warm. Jania whispers, "I'll be right back, baby, I promise." But she knows it's a lie. She won't be back until morning. She leaves a neighbor's phone number on the table. She leaves water by the bed. She cracks the bedroom door open so Arya won't feel completely alone. Then, with a heart that feels like it's being torn apart, she steps out into the cold, the weight of her decision pressing against her like an iron chain. The night shift is brutal. Her body aches, her eyelids fight to stay open, but her mind stays home, trapped in that bedroom, replaying every worst-case scenario. She's scrubbing floors, cleaning toilets, but what she's really doing is bargaining with God. Please let her be okay. Please let her still be breathing when I get home. Tyler Perry doesn't sensationalize this moment. He lets it simmer in its devastating simplicity. This is the quiet terror single mothers face, the daily gamble where something is always at risk. When Jania finally rushes home in the morning, she finds Arya still sleeping, still safe. Relief washes over her, but it's soaked in exhaustion and shame. Because even though everything is fine today, she knows another emergency shift is always coming. Another impossible choice is waiting just around the corner. This is the life Straw exposes, where stability is a fantasy and survival is a series of desperate, breathless sprints. And the cruelest part? The world never stops to notice. It just expects you to keep running. A few days later, Jania's phone rings while she's on her first job at the hotel. The number flashing on her screen is from Arya's school. Her chest tightens immediately. Parents like Jania know that school phone calls in the middle of the day rarely bring good news. The voice on the other end is polite but distant, a school counselor. She tells Jania that Arya has been unusually withdrawn. She hasn't been participating in class. She's been sitting alone during recess, and yesterday she fell asleep at her desk, her head buried in her folded arms, while the teacher was still explaining the lesson. There's a carefully wrapped concern in the counselor's tone, but what Jania hears is something far more terrifying. They're watching now. They've noticed. The system is aware. The counselor gently asks if everything is all right at home, if Arya is getting enough rest, enough food, enough attention. Jenia's throat closes. She knows how quickly these questions can snowball into home visits, into investigations, into threats of separation. She has heard stories of other mothers who worked two jobs, left their kids home alone just once, and suddenly found themselves standing in family court, fighting to keep their children. Her heart pounds as she explains, half truths wrapped in practiced calm, that things have just been a little busy, that Arya is a little tired from school, that everything at home is fine. But inside, panic is rising. She can't afford for the system to step in. She can't afford to have strangers poking into her life, questioning her parenting, holding clipboards that can decide if her daughter stays or goes. When the call ends, Jania sinks into the break room chair, her hands trembling. The cold plastic of her phone feels heavier now, like it carries the weight of invisible eyes watching her every move. This is the quiet fear most people don't see. The fear of being a working parent, doing everything you can, yet always one slip away from having your love for your child questioned. Tyler Perry paints this moment with haunting precision, not through shouting, but through the suffocating silence of a mother who realizes she's being cornered by a system that labels her sacrifices as neglect. Jania knows now that she has to fix this. She has to pull Arya closer. She has to protect her from falling into those official concern files. But the cruelest part? She's still clocked in. She still has 4 hours left on her shift. She still has to clean the next room, make the next bed, while carrying the weight of this new terror. Because poverty doesn't give you time to process. It forces you to keep moving, even when the ground beneath you is starting to crack. That evening, Jania and Arya return home to an apartment colder than usual. The heat, already unreliable, has completely stopped working. The radiator sits silent, its metal surface icy to the touch, as if it's given up trying to fight the winter creeping through the thin walls. Jania checks the thermostat, bangs the side of the radiator, tries the old tricks that sometimes coax a little warmth back, but nothing works. She already knows why. The heat bill is overdue, again. She's been juggling rent, groceries, bus fare, and Arya's school needs, always paying what she can, always falling just a little short. This time, the landlord didn't wait. The heat was cut. Arya, wrapped in her too-thin jacket, stands quietly, blowing warm air into her cupped hands. She doesn't complain. She doesn't ask questions. She knows. This is the kind of moment Tyler Perry delivers with painful honesty. There's no dramatic rescue, no neighbor who suddenly offers help. There's just the cold. There's just a mother who has to find a way to make a freezing apartment livable for her daughter tonight. Jania begins layering, grabbing every blanket, every spare sweater, piling them onto Arya's bed like a fortress. She boils water on the stove, trying to warm the small kitchen. She sets up a space heater in the bedroom, but she knows it's not enough. The walls still leak the winter wind, the floors sting with cold. She tells Arya they're going to camp out tonight, making it sound like an adventure. She lays extra socks on Arya's feet, tucks her in tightly, and promises the heat will be back soon. But both of them know it's a story, a bedtime lie to soften the bite of the truth. The hardest part is when Arya, shivering but pretending to be brave, asks, "Mama, is this my fault? Is it because I wanted the chocolate?" The question rips Jania apart. How do you explain to a child that it's never their fault, that the system is cruel, that life has been unfair to people like them long before she was born? How do you erase the guilt that's quietly settling in your daughter's heart? Jania wraps her arms around Arya, pulling her close as if her body heat could shield her from the brutal cold. No, baby, none of this is your fault. You hear me? Not one single thing. But the words feel small against the freezing air pressing in from all sides. This is where straw digs its sharpest blade, not in the big dramatic moments, but in the quiet, hopeless spaces where survival becomes physical pain. The heat is gone. The comfort is gone. But the love is still there, burning fiercely, even if the room remains cold. Tyler Perry shows us that poverty is not always loud. Sometimes it's just the silent fight to keep your child warm through another long, unforgiving night. A few days later, as the cold lingers in their apartment, Arya starts talking about her upcoming birthday. She doesn't ask for much. She dreams out loud about a simple cake, balloons from the dollar store, maybe even a small gift. Nothing big, just a new storybook, something with princesses and castles. Jania listens, smiling softly, even though her heart sinks with every word. She knows the reality. The rent is already overdue. The heat is still off. Her paychecks are already spent before they arrive. But Arya doesn't know that. All she knows is that her mother promised a birthday celebration, a cake, a little magic to make her feel special, even just for a day. Jania clings to that promise. She scrapes every spare dollar, skips her own lunches, and prays the math will work out. She plans to buy the cake on her lunch break the day before Arya's birthday. It's going to be tight, but she's determined. But life has a brutal sense of timing. The night before, while cleaning rooms at the hotel, Jania slips on a freshly mopped floor. It's a small fall, but her ankle twists badly. The pain is sharp, immediate. Her manager tells her to take the next shift off to rest. But rest means no pay. No pay means no cake, no decorations, no balloons. The numbers no longer add up. Jania stumbles home, limping, fighting tears, sitting at the tiny kitchen table with her head in her hands. She's broken a promise she never wanted to break, and the guilt, it crushes her. The next morning, Arya wakes up excited, her face glowing with the innocent belief that today will be special. But there is no cake, no candles, no gift. Jania pulls Arya into a tight hug and softly says, "I'm so sorry, baby. Mama's going to make it up to you, I promise." And Arya, sweet, forgiving Arya, just smiles and says, "It's okay, Mama. I still have you. That's enough." But it's not enough. Not to Jania. Not when she's been fighting every day to give her daughter even the smallest joys, and life keeps snatching them away. Tyler Perry doesn't need a grand, tragic event here. This is the heartbreak that happens in the quiet, when a child's small dream crumbles under the weight of real-world burdens. Jania carries that broken birthday like a scar. It reminds her that even when she gives everything, sometimes it's still not enough. And that, the inability to give your child simple happiness, is a kind of pain that never leaves. This is the kind of emotional wound Straw keeps exposing. Not always catastrophic. Sometimes it's just the ache of ordinary disappointments that poverty forces onto a mother and child. The next week, Jania finally gathers enough courage and just enough cash to call the building's maintenance man about the broken heater. It has been days of bitter cold, nights spent huddled together under piles of mismatched blankets, and mornings where Arya's breath forms visible clouds in the air. The maintenance man promises to come by in the afternoon. For the first time in days, a tiny flicker of hope lights up inside Jania. She imagines the apartment warm again. She imagines Arya coming home from school and peeling off her jacket, no longer needing to wear it inside. She imagines cooking a hot dinner without freezing fingers. It's such a small thing, but to her, it feels like everything. When the knock finally comes at the door, Jania is almost too nervous to open it. The maintenance man walks in, checks the radiator, makes a few phone calls, and then delivers a verdict that lands like a punch to the chest. The whole heating system's down. The landlord hasn't paid for repairs. Might be weeks before it's working again. Weeks. Not hours, not days. Weeks. Jania stands frozen in the middle of the living room, the air around her suddenly feeling colder than before. She had been clinging to this one small fix, this one piece of relief, and now even that has been stripped away. The maintenance man shrugs, indifferent, like he said this to a dozen other tenants. To him, it's just another broken system in another low income building. To Jania, it's the collapse of the last bit of comfort she could offer her daughter. She tries to stay calm, but later, when she's alone, she punches the side of the cold radiator in frustration. Her knuckles sting, but the radiator remains as silent and lifeless as before. There's no magic solution. There's no hero coming. And this is what Tyler Perry crafts so brilliantly in Straw, the agony of promises that life keeps making and breaking over and over. The story teaches us that sometimes the hardest part isn't the disasters, it's the false hopes, the moments when you almost believe it's going to get better, only for reality to slam the door shut in your face. Arya comes home that evening, still wearing her jacket, still cold, still hopeful, and Jenia forces herself to smile to tell another soft lie. Soon, baby, it's going to get fixed soon. But inside, she's drowning. Because she knows there's nothing soon about this. She has to find another way. She has to protect Arya from this relentless winter. Because love isn't just about holding on, it's about fighting against the things that keep slipping through your fingers. And in Straw, Tyler Perry shows us that it's the accumulation of these moments, the piling weight of disappointments, that truly tests how much a mother can bear. Just when the weight of disappointment begins to suffocate Jania, a soft knock comes at her door one evening. On the other side stands Mrs. Carter, an elderly neighbor from 2 floors up. She's holding a small space heater in her wrinkled hands, a beat-up old machine with chipped paint and a humming noise that never fully quiets. I heard about your heat, Mrs. Carter says gently, her voice low but firm. Can't let that little girl freeze in this cold. Jania's throat tightens. She's not used to kindness anymore. In a world that constantly takes, she has forgotten how to receive. She starts to politely decline, instinctively thinking about pride, about the unspoken rules of surviving without owing anyone. But Mrs. Carter doesn't wait for her to finish. She simply steps inside, plugs in the heater, and nods as if the matter is settled. There's no room for refusal. There's no awkward exchange. It's simply one mother, long past her own battles, silently passing the torch of protection to another. This is the kind of subtle, life-saving moment Straw captures so powerfully. Tyler Perry doesn't give us grand charity. He gives us these small, human-sized kindnesses. The ones that aren't posted online, the ones that aren't dramatic, the ones that save you quietly, in the background, when no one is watching. The heater isn't perfect. It warms only a corner of the room. Its sound is a constant buzzing that could drive someone mad. But for Yania and Arya, it feels like the sun has finally cracked through their frozen walls. That night, for the first time in weeks, they sit together without their coats. They laugh, they read a storybook, they pretend they're in a warm cabin in the mountains, building imaginary fires with their words. Arya's cheeks glow pink, her little body finally thawing, her voice light again. But what lingers most in Jania's heart is not the heat. It's the reminder that sometimes survival isn't just about how hard you fight alone. Sometimes it's about how deeply you allow yourself to accept the outstretched hands around you. Tyler Perry's message here is piercing. When the system fails, when the rent is unpaid, when the heaters go cold, it is often the overlooked people, the invisible heroes, who step in with simple, essential acts of care. In the cold machinery of poverty, humanity is the last remaining warmth. And Mrs. Carter's small gift, that battered space heater, becomes a silent symbol of resistance, a quiet, stubborn flame against the cold indifference of the world. Jania holds on to that, because sometimes it's not the big rescues that save you. Sometimes it's the borrowed heater humming softly in the corner of a freezing apartment. One particularly brutal morning, when the icy wind cuts sharper than knives and the frost clings to every window pane, Jania makes a decision that defines the depth of her motherhood. Arya's coat is too thin, the zippers are broken, and the fabric barely holds against the bitter cold. Jania knows this isn't safe anymore. Her daughter can't walk to school in this weather, not without getting sick, not without risking something far worse. So, without a word, Jania shrugs off her own coat, the only proper winter jacket they have between them, and wraps it tightly around Arya's tiny frame. It hangs loosely, far too big, but it swallows Arya in warmth. The child looks up at her mother with wide, confused eyes. Mama, what about you? Jania forces a smile. Mama's a big girl. Big girls don't get cold. Arya hesitates, then finally believes her. The innocence in her eyes tells Jania that the lie worked, for now. But the truth is crueler. Jania walks her daughter all the way to school, braving the savage wind in just a thin sweater, her body trembling with every gust, her fingers stiff and burning from the cold. Every step feels heavier, as if the cold is trying to pull her into the sidewalk itself. When she drops Arya off, she watches her daughter disappear through the school doors, safe, warm, wearing the coat. And then she turns around, facing the long walk back home, shivering violently, her breath sharp and painful in the air. Tyler Perry's Straw teaches us that sometimes the loudest declarations of love are completely silent. Jania doesn't weep in front of anyone. She doesn't tell her friends. She doesn't complain. She simply walks home alone, absorbing the weight of this silent sacrifice. The walk is brutal, but she would do it 1,000 times. Because for a mother like Jania, the math is simple. If one of us has to suffer, it's going to be me. It will never be you, my child. This moment strikes with emotional force because it's not about grand speeches or cinematic heroism. It's about the quiet, agonizing choices that poor mothers make every day without applause, without recognition, and without backup. Tyler Perry's genius in Straw is in showing that love is measured not in what you can buy, but in what you're willing to endure. Jania's frozen walk is her battlefield. It's where she chooses her daughter's safety over her own comfort. It's where she bleeds in silence, with no witnesses, but with a heart that blazes against the cold. She arrives home, teeth chattering, hands raw, curling into herself beneath a pile of blankets. She sips lukewarm tea and